I was sitting in a lawyer's office watching my wife sign divorce papers with a smile that made my stomach turn. Stephanie thought she was about to walk away with half of the $2.4 million my mother had just left me. 7 years of marriage, and it all came down to this moment. Her pen moved across the paper with confidence, like she had been practicing this signature for weeks. Maybe she had. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I watched the woman I loved transform into someone I did not recognize. She had no idea what my mother had planned. Before I tell you how my mother's wisdom saved me from the biggest mistake of my life, I want to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments below. If you have ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted, hit that like button and subscribe because this story has a twist you will not see coming. Trust me, you will want to hear how a mother's love can see through deception even from beyond the grave. Now let me take you back to where it all started. I met Stephanie 8 years ago at a coffee shop in Seattle. I was a fresh software engineer, 24 years old, wearing my favorite worn-out sneakers and carrying a laptop covered in programming stickers. She walked in wearing a red dress that caught every eye in the room, but somehow she chose to sit at my table. We talked for 4 hours that day. She worked in marketing, had this incredible energy that made everything seem possible. When she laughed at my terrible jokes, I felt like the most interesting man alive. We dated for 2 years before I proposed. Nothing fancy, just us on a hiking trail overlooking the city, the sunset painting the sky, orange and purple. She said yes before I even finished asking. Our wedding was small, about 40 people, held in a garden in Portland after we moved there for my new job. I wanted simple. Stephanie wanted more, but she agreed, because she said she loved me more than she loved big celebrations. The first 3 years were good. We rented a one-bedroom apartment in southeast Portland, spent Sunday evenings cooking together, testing recipes we found online. I made $85,000 a year, decent money for a guy in his late 20s. We saved where we could. I drove a 2008 Honda that rattled when it went over 40 miles per hour. Stephanie often mentioned wanting a bigger place, something in the West Hills, maybe with a view. But I kept saying we needed to save first, build a foundation. She would sigh and say, okay, but I noticed the way her eyes lingered on real estate listings. My mother, Eleanor, was 67 when all this started. She lived alone in a beautiful house in Lake Oswego, about 20 minutes from us. My father died 12 years earlier from a heart attack, sudden and devastating. After that, my mother threw herself into her law practice. She was a contracts attorney for 40 years, sharp as a blade, respected by everyone who knew her. She never remarried, said she had given her heart once, and that was enough. Eleanor was never warm with Stephanie. No trude just distant. Polite smiles at family dinners, brief conversations that never went deep. I thought my mother was just being protective the way mothers are with their sons. No woman would ever be good enough. Right. I defended Stephanie countless times. Once at Thanksgiving, Eleanor asked Stephanie about her career goals. Stephanie said something about wanting financial security, and I saw my mother's expression shift just slightly. Later, Eleanor pulled me aside and asked if Stephanie talked about money often. I laughed it off, said everyone thinks about security. My mother just nodded, but her eyes looked sad. 4 months before I sat in that lawyer's office, Eleanor died from a stroke. She was working in her home office going through case files even though she had retired 2 years prior. The neighbor found her the next morning when she did not answer the door for their usual Tuesday coffee. I got the call at work. My entire world stopped. I drove to her house, sat in her kitchen, and cried for hours. She was the only parent I had left, the only person who knew me, before I became whoever I was trying to be. The funeral was simple per her wishes. 20 people, mostly colleagues and old friends. Stephanie stood beside me, held my hand, whispered that everything would be okay. I thought she was being supportive. But looking back now, I remember the way her eyes scanned my mother's house during the reception, taking inventory. The first week after the funeral, I could barely function. I called in sick to work, spent days looking through old photo albums, reading letters my mother had saved. Stephanie brought me food, made sure I ate, but she also started asking questions. Where did Eleanor keep important documents? Did she have a will? What about her assets? I told her I had not thought about it yet. I was grieving. She touched my shoulder and said, "I know this is hard, babe, but we need to be practical. Your mom was a successful lawyer for 40 years. There must be something." The way she said something made me uncomfortable, but I pushed the feeling away. She was just looking out for our future, right? That is what partners do. They think ahead when you cannot. A few days later, I was using our shared laptop and noticed the search history. Stephanie had Googled inheritance laws in Oregon and how is property divided in divorce. I stared at the screen for 10 minutes trying to make sense of it. Why would she be looking up divorce information? We had never talked about splitting up. I convinced myself she was just researching, being thorough. Maybe she was worried about something else entirely. 2 weeks after the funeral, my mother's lawyer called. His name was Gregory Patterson, a man with silver hair and kind eyes who had been Eleanor's friend for 30 years. He asked me to come to his office downtown to discuss her will. Stephanie overheard the conversation. Her face lit up in a way I had never seen before. "I will come with you," she said immediately. "We are a team, right?" I agreed. It seemed like the right thing to do. We were married. We shared everything. But as we drove to the appointment, I noticed Stephanie checking her makeup in the mirror 3 times, smoothing her dress like we were going somewhere important. We were going to hear about my dead mother's estate, and she was preparing like it was a job interview. Gregory Patterson's office was in an old building downtown, all dark wood and leather chairs. Books lined every wall, legal volumes with gold lettering on their spines. He greeted us at the door, shook my hand with both of his, and looked at Stephanie with an expression I could not quite read. Not hostile, just careful. We sat down. He offered coffee. I declined. Stephanie accepted and added 2 sugars, stirring slowly like we had all the time in the world. "Marcus," he began, "your mother left very specific instructions. I want you to know she thought about this carefully." Then he told me the number. $2,400,000. The house in Lake Oswego worth $900,000. Investment portfolios, savings accounts, retirement funds, she had never touched. All of it left to me. I could not breathe. That much money did not seem real. My mother had lived, simply drove a 10-year-old Subaru, clipped coupons from the Sunday paper. I had no idea she had saved so much. Stephanie grabbed my hand, but it did not feel comforting. It felt possessive. "Oh my God, Marcus. 2.4 million. Her voice was too loud for the quiet office. Gregory glanced at her, then back at me. "This changes everything." Stephanie continued, barely able to contain herself. "We can finally buy that house we have been dreaming about. Maybe in the West Hills. And we should look at new cars. You have been driving that old Honda for 8 years. I had not said a word yet. I was still processing the fact that my mother was gone and that she had left me enough money to change my entire life. But Stephanie was already spending it in her mind. Gregory cleared his throat. "Marcus, your mother left very specific instructions. I need to schedule another meeting with you. Alone." He emphasized that last word, looking directly into my eyes. Stephanie stiffened. "Whatever it is, you can say it in front of me. We are married. We do not have secrets." Gregory was polite, but firm. "I am afraid this is a matter between Marcus and his mother's estate. Legal protocols." Stephanie forced a smile, but I saw her jaw clench. "Of course. I understand." But she did not understand. And she was not happy. The week after that first meeting, Stephanie changed. Not gradually, overnight. She started talking about vacations to Hawaii, about designer handbags she had always wanted, about restaurants where entrees cost $60. When I reminded her the money was still tied up in estate proceedings, that we could not access it yet, she waved her hand dismissively. "But it is coming, right? We are going to be rich, Marcus." Finally. That word bothered me. Rich. Like it was something we deserved, something we had been waiting for. My mother died, and Stephanie saw it as our lottery win. She wanted to sell my mother's house immediately. We were lying in bed one night when she brought it up casual, as talking about the weather. "That house is worth 900,000, babe. We could buy something newer, bigger, and still have money left over." I rolled over to face her. "That house means something to me. I know, but we need to be practical. Your mom would not want you to be sentimental about bricks and wood." The way she talked about my mother like she knew what Eleanor would want made anger flash through me. You did not know my mother. Stephanie backtracked quickly. I just meant she would want you to be happy, to have the best life possible. But that was not what she meant. She meant my mother would want us to have money to live large, to show everyone how successful we were. Stephanie started spending before we had anything. She bought $300 shoes on our credit card, went out for expensive lunches with friends, told everyone we knew about the inheritance. I overheard her on the phone with her mother one afternoon. "Yeah, Mom, we are finally getting what we deserve." Marcus's mom was loaded. What we deserve. Like my mother's death was a reward for putting up with 7 years of modest living. I went to the second meeting with Gregory alone. Stephanie was furious. Accused me of shutting her out, said married couples. Do not keep secrets. I told her it was legal procedure, nothing personal. She did not believe me. Gregory's office felt different when it was just us. Quieter, safer. He pulled out a manila envelope, placed it on the desk between us. Your mother gave me this 6 months before she passed. She wanted me to give it to you personally. Inside was a letter handwritten on my mother's cream-colored stationery. Her handwriting was neat, precise, just like everything else about her. My hands shook as I read. My dearest Marcus, if you are reading this, I am gone, and I am so sorry to leave you. But I need you to know something. I have been watching, and I am worried about Stephanie. I hope I am wrong. I truly do. But I see signs that concern me. The way she asks about money, about my will, about what you will inherit. A woman who truly loves you does not count your mother's money before she is even gone. I have tried to talk to you about this gently, but you defend her. That is what love does. It makes us blind. So I am protecting you the only way I know how. If I am wrong about her, none of this will matter. But if I am right, you will understand why I did what I did. I love you more than anything in this world. Love always, Mom. Tears fell on the paper, smudging the ink. Gregory handed me a tissue and waited. Then he explained the legal structure. My mother had not left me the money directly. She had created something called an irrevocable trust. All $2,400,000 were placed in this trust, with me as the sole beneficiary. I could access the money, use it however I wanted, but technically I did not own it. The trust did. Under Oregon law, Gregory explained, trust assets established before marriage or through inheritance are not considered marital property. They cannot be divided in a divorce. I stared at him. My mother thought we would get divorced. Your mother thought Stephanie might not love you for the right reasons, and she wanted to make sure that if that was true, you would not lose everything. My mother had seen through Stephanie from the beginning. All those careful questions, those concerned looks, they were not about being difficult. They were about protecting her son. What do? I asked. Gregory leaned back in his chair. Eleanor told me something before she died. She said, if Stephanie truly loves Marcus, this will not matter. But if she does not, this will reveal everything. I suggest you wait and see what happens. Do not tell her about the trust structure. Let her show you who she really is. I drove home in a daze. Part of me wanted to confront Stephanie immediately to ask her directly if she loved me or my mother's money. But another part of me needed to know for certain. I needed to see what she would do. 2 days later, I came home from work to find Stephanie sitting at our kitchen table. Papers were spread out in front of her. Her face was calm, calculated, cold. We need to talk, she said. I set my keys down slowly. Okay. She pushed the papers toward me. Divorce documents. Already filled out, dated, ready for signatures. I want a divorce, Marcus. I have thought about this for a long time. We are not compatible anymore. My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice steady. When did you decide this? It does not matter. What matters is that we separate fairly. Under Oregon law, I am entitled to half of all marital assets. She emphasized the word half like she had practiced it. Like this was a business transaction and not the end of 7 years together. I am asking for $1,200,000, half the current apartment's value, and monthly support for 2 years, while I get back on my feet. I looked at the woman I had married. She was sitting there planning how to spend my dead mother's money, acting like she was the victim in all this. "What about the 7 years we spent together?" I asked. She shrugged. "We grew apart. These things happen. Let us just handle this maturely." Maturely meant give her the money without a fight. "Okay," I said, my voice eerily calm. "If that is what you want." She blinked, surprised. "Really? You are okay with this? If you want to leave, I will not stop you. Let us meet at the lawyer's office next week." She smiled, then actually smiled, like she had won something. "I am glad you are being reasonable about this." I did not tell her about the trust. I did not tell her that every single dollar was protected from her. I just nodded and watched her pack her things into the guest bedroom that night, humming to herself like she was planning a vacation. The next few days were torture. Stephanie called her divorce attorney, a sharp-looking woman named Patricia Hartley, and scheduled our meeting. I heard her on the phone laughing, talking about how she would finally be able to afford the life she wanted. Once I walked past the bedroom and heard her say, "Once this is done, I can finally live the life I deserve." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her the truth just to see her face. But I waited. My mother taught me patience. The day of the divorce meeting arrived. We sat in Patricia Hartley's office, all glass and steel and cold modernity. Stephanie wore a navy dress and pearls like she was going to court. Patricia laid out the demands again, half of the inheritance, half of everything we had accumulated, support payments. Then Gregory arrived with his briefcase. He nodded at me, pulled out the trust documents, and slid them across the table. Patricia read them. Her expression shifted from confident to confused to defeated in about 30 seconds. "This is an irrevocable trust," she said slowly, "established 6 months before Mrs. Eleanor's death. The assets are not marital property." Stephanie grabbed the papers from her lawyer. "What? No? That money is half mine. We are married." Patricia shook her head. "I am sorry, but legally trust assets are protected. They cannot be divided in divorce proceedings under Oregon law." Stephanie's face went white, then red. She turned to me, her eyes blazing. "You knew about this?" "I found out after you started planning our divorce," I said calmly. "Gregory told me 2 days before you served papers. You tricked me." "No. My mother protected me. There is a difference." Patricia tried to calm her client, but Stephanie was beyond reason. She stood up, knocking her chair backward. "This is not fair. I spent 7 years with you. 7 years of living in that tiny apartment, driving that terrible car, pretending to be happy with nothing. And there it was, the truth. She had been pretending. All of it. The smiles, the support, the love. It was all an act, a long investment, waiting for the payoff. You filed for divorce 2 weeks after my mother died," I said quietly. "You thought you would get rich. My mom saw through you from the beginning. I wish I had." Stephanie had nothing left to say. No defense, no explanation, just rage that her plan had failed. In the end, she signed the papers, taking only what she was legally owed, half of our rented apartment's deposit, which was $800, and her personal belongings. She walked out of that office without looking back, tears streaming down her face. But they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of anger. She had gambled and lost. The months after the divorce were strange. I moved into my mother's house in Lake Oswego, walking through rooms filled with her presence. Her reading glasses still sat on the nightstand. Her coffee mug, the one that said "World's Best Attorney," still hung on the hook in the kitchen. At first, the silence was unbearable. I had lost 2 of the most important people in my life, within months of each other. My mother to death, my wife to greed. I spent nights wondering if I could have seen the signs earlier, if I could have saved us somehow. But then I realized there was nothing to save. Stephanie never loved me. She loved the idea of what I could become, what I could give her. I started fixing up the house room by room. I repainted my old bedroom, turned my mother's office into a library. Each repair felt like healing, like honoring her memory. I went through her things carefully, finding letters she had written, but never sent, photos from when my father was alive, recipes she had clipped from magazines. Work became a refuge. I threw myself into projects, started mentoring junior developers, and got promoted to senior engineer. My boss commented that I seemed more focused, more present. Losing everything had somehow made me more myself. I started volunteering at a free legal clinic downtown, helping people who could not afford attorneys. It was something my mother had done every Saturday for 20 years. Sitting there, explaining contract terms to a single mother, trying to understand her lease, I felt close to Eleanor again. I understood why she loved this work. It was not about money. It was about helping people protect themselves. I used part of the trust money to establish a scholarship fund in my mother's name for low-income law students. The Eleanor Grant, they called it. $25,000 a year for someone who wanted to study law but could not afford it. At the first award ceremony, I gave a speech about my mother's wisdom, her kindness, her ability to see through deception. I did not mention Stephanie by name, but I talked about the importance of protecting yourself while still believing in love. Friends I had lost touch with during my marriage started calling again. I realized Stephanie had slowly isolated me, discouraged friendships that did not benefit her somehow. Now I had game nights with guys from work, went hiking on weekends, joined a book club where we actually talked about books instead of pretending to read them. One evening, about 8 months after the divorce, I was sitting in my mother's kitchen drinking coffee. The garden outside was blooming roses my mother had planted years ago, bursting with color. I thought about the last real conversation I had with her before the stroke. We were sitting in this same kitchen, and she had said, "I just want you to be happy, son. Truly happy, not just comfortable." At the time, I thought she was talking about my career, about taking risks. But now I understood. She was talking about Stephanie, about settling for someone who made life easy but not meaningful. I learned that love is not about what someone says. It is about what they do when they think no one is watching. It is about how they treat you when there is nothing to gain. Stephanie loved my potential inheritance. She never loved me. I learned that protecting yourself is not selfish. My mother setting up that trust was not about being controlling or manipulative. It was about loving me enough to see danger I could not see. It was about giving me the freedom to learn the truth without losing everything. I learned that grief and growth often come together. Losing my mother was the most painful experience of my life. But her final gift taught me to value authenticity over comfort, truth over convenience. She protected my future even when she could not be there to see it. Sometimes people ask me if I regret marrying Stephanie. I do not. Those 7 years taught me what I do not want, what real love is not. They taught me to listen to the people who truly care about me, even when I do not want to hear what they are saying. I think about how many people are living with their own versions of Stephanie right now, people who smile and plan and wait for the moment to cash out. I think about how many sons and daughters ignore their parents' warnings because love makes us blind. My mother gave me $2,400,000. But the real inheritance was teaching me that some people will only love you for what you have, not who you are. She taught me that wisdom sometimes looks like pessimism, that protection sometimes feels like control, that the people who truly love you will love you when you have nothing. That lesson worth more than any amount of money could ever be. So let me ask you something. Have you ever ignored a warning from someone who loved you? Have you ever defended someone who did not deserve it because you were afraid to see the truth? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. This is a safe space to share your story. And if this resonated with you, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more real stories about real life. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe someone who is ignoring red flags right now. Sometimes a story can open eyes that advice cannot. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps you trust your instincts, protect your heart, and remember that the people who truly love you want what is best for you, not what is best from you. Take care of yourselves out there, and hold tight to the people who love you for exactly who you are.